talking about the registration of those players, saying we've done these financial operations to save the club and to sign new players. I hope we don't have to do any more. It is a controlled risk. If we have to recover the plan of selling further club assets, we will weigh it up. But we believe we can register the new signings with this deal. Robbo is still with us, as is a very warm Sid Lowe. Sid, let's talk about Barcelona and how they just keep finding money behind the couch.
Well, they keep finding assets that they can partially sell off, and obviously, you know, we've talked all summer, haven't we, about this great word palanca, which we hadn't really ever talked about before in the past. Economic levers or leverage, and that's of course involved the selling of 2 packets of TV rights for the future, and the latest one is the sale of Barca Studios, which, by the way, wasn't voted for in that last assembly, but had been voted for in the previous one back in October. So they still would have the possibility, as we were talking about earlier in the summer, of selling a percentage of the licensing arm of the club as well. Of course, Laporta doesn't want to do that. He wants to avoid that particular one if he can, but he thinks that the most important thing is to build a squad that is strong enough to compete on all fronts. Because, of course, this is part of Laporta's thinking. This idea of virtuous circle, that the better team you have, the more people engage with the club, the more investment that you can make, and therefore the better the team is, and the more that people will come to games, spend money on merchandising, and the whole thing kind of spirals from there. That at least is the theory. The practice, of course, now has to be seen, whether that can happen over the course of this season, and indeed, of course, whether the income reaches the kind of levels that Laporta hopes it does.
So where do we stand on player registration? This is, of course, something we've discussed a lot over the last 12 months in reference to Barcelona. Do they have to get rid of players before they can register these new ones?
Right. Well, of course we don't know, because we're not party to the details of the accounts, to exactly what position they are at. Now, we know one really important thing, and that is they're still a month away from that point, so there's still room for manoeuvre. We also know that what Barcelona were briefing a week or so ago was basically, for this to work, Frenkie de Jong has to go, or something equivalent to Frenkie de Jong has to happen in terms of the balance of the budget. Now, the reason for that essentially is because de Jong would cost them around about 42 million euros over the course of the next financial year. There's a couple of other players that they would like to move on if they possibly can, but that was the key deal. Now, what they've done by selling this percentage of Barca Studios is effectively try to recuperate that money without being put in a position where they have to move de Jong on. Now, they would still like to, if of course the offer was right, they would still like to move other players on, and I think there will be efforts ongoing between now and the end of the season to do that. So right now, looking at it from the outside without being party to those figures, given the amount that they've made through these economic leverages, given the amount of the position that they were in the last time the league made public their accounts, I think you look at it and you think they're pretty close now. But of course we don't know, because those numbers are shifting all the time with the new Spotify deal for the Camp Nou, with the departure of players, with these free economic levers that have been pulled, with the increase in money that's coming in. And so obviously what we, I suppose, have to say at this point is that Barcelona, however much there's a desire to push a really, really strong squad, they also know about the financial difficulties. They know as well that in Mateu Alemany, who's of course in charge of the whole of the sporting arm of the club, but also very, very well aware of the management needed to get through the criteria for La Liga's, essentially their financial fair play rules, what's known as the salary limit. They know that he is an expert at that. And so I find it hard to believe that there would be a scenario in which they miss it by a long way. It may well be that as we get close to that deadline, they still have 1 or 2 players that they can't register, as they desperately try and force others out. But at the moment, they believe they're on track, having pulled these economic levers, with, of course, as I've already said, one more economic lever to pull if they absolutely had to.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week, subscribe to ESPN+.